Finally, we'll talk about how Truis fits into the picture. We'll finish with a Q&A section, so please keep your questions until the end, and or feel free to put them in the Q&A or chat section of the meeting before then, as you think of the questions. I usually say that I've been working with IBM since before it existed. What I mean is that when I started in the industry in 1984, I was working with our AS400 predecessors, like and migrating System 36 users or System 34 users to System 36. In '88, when the first AS400s were announced, merging the 36 and 38 technologies, that's of course where I migrated to. Just over 13 years ago, Truis had already recognised the value of Maxava solutions, and I joined the company to enhance their Maxava implementation and support capabilities. Today, I'm joined by John Dominic, Global Vice President of Maxava. John, could you please tell us a little about yourself?
Sure, thank you, Lars. Hi, everyone. I'm John. I am the Global Vice President for Maxava. I am actually based in Philadelphia, but I provide support to our partner network around the world. We have been almost exclusively working through IBM partnerships for about 20 years now, and I've been in this space for about 18, so not quite the same pedigree, but I've seen quite a bit of change on the service side since then.
Thanks, John. As a people-focused IT solution provider, Computer Merchants rebranded about 18 months as Truis. The name change and the new brand identity reflect and celebrate a rich history of core values and a clear focus on the future. Truis was founded over 40 years ago as Computer Merchants with a mission to create innovative IT solutions that align with our customers' unique situations and ambitions. As technology has advanced and our clients' needs have evolved, so too have our capabilities and market coverage. Today, as a multi-vendor solution provider, we help clients across Australia and neighbouring countries to prosper and grow. Throughout our history, we've always been committed to IBM and Power Systems and their predecessors. This is reflected by our IBM Platinum partner status and is also extends to our use of IBM for our internal systems. In recent years, Truis has recognised the value of ISO certification, and we've achieved the ISO 9001 certification for quality management and the ISO 27001 certification for information security management. Maxava has been in operations for over 20 years, and as John said, is IBM partner focused. This is designed to bring customers good local expertise in high availability. At the same time, via a network of support offices around the world, they can provide follow-the-sun support when you need it most. Cloud is well established in many territories, and Maxava is a leading expert in migrating customers to hosted cloud environments, including IBM Cloud and Azure. In this presentation, we'll show how this process is easily achieved by many customers, as well as outline the new solutions coming for 2022 for customers considering migration to Power 9, Power 10. So what does today's landscape look like? The Power 10 is now available in most areas, but only the top-end 1080s, with smaller boxes expected to arrive in the middle of the year. Because of the delay, we're seeing many clients choose to move to Power 9 instead, waiting for the Power 10. IBM have been giving huge price incentives, including service vouchers and access to a large content library. While IBM is creating savings for Power 9, many clients are still concerned with the cost of their current DR software products, as the price generally increases every time they move to a new generation. John will talk later about how Maxava takes away this problem by allowing P group-based pricing and providing the option of an OPEX subscription model. And if you move to Maxava before migrating to Power 9 or Power 10, Maxava offers a maintenance holiday on selected products, so you can avoid paying Maxava software license fees until after your HA software maintenance expires. That's for your other HA software. This allows you to install Maxava before the upgrade and migrate to Power 9 or 10 to minimise software fees and avoid penalties. The nature of replication also allows you to migrate to the new hardware or remote cloud system without taking down the production system. Always the biggest worry for most clients. Here are some of the challenges we're all facing in the IT industry today. The robust nature of IBM I and IBM Power Systems is a double-edged sword. It means that although IBM I generally requires fewer human resources to manage, the availability of those resources is reduced and their cost is often higher. Monitoring our systems and applications with the ever-increasing complexity of our infrastructure is also a growing issue for most organisations. Capacity limitations are not so much a factor of cost, but more about building environments that are flexible and scalable enough to meet ongoing growth. And it seems that when we invest in hardware, it's merely a few years before it's obsolete or becoming prohibitively expensive to maintain. Then there's the ever-increasing security threats that force us to divert our already scarce financial resources on protecting our networks and data from attack. But we mustn't forget the internal threat of misuse or human error. There are many organisational or regulatory reasons for retaining your hardware infrastructure in-house. And maintaining an up-to-date hardware platform is still an effective and successful strategy for many. Owning or leasing new equipment under warranty eliminates hardware maintenance costs and allows you to take advantage of the latest technology. And with effective migration plans, it need not be a painful or risky exercise to upgrade to a new hardware. Outsourcing the ownership and optionally also the management of the hardware infrastructure is becoming an increasingly viable option for many organisations. Hosted solutions usually provide more flexibility and scalability than you can provide within your own organisation. Hosted solutions also allow you to restructure the cost. In some cases, it also allows you to shift much of the ongoing management responsibility. Moving to full cloud is another good solution for many organisations. Even though it can bring challenges, they can be managed, and cloud solutions can become the ultimate in flexibility and scalability. In reality, most organisations will have some combination of in-house, hosted, and full cloud infrastructure. It's a matter of finding the right fit for your applications and your organisation. For ongoing management and protection, effective monitoring and security solutions are critical, regardless of what type of infrastructure platform you choose. So now I'll let John tell you about Maxava's role in good migrations.
Okay, thank you, Lars. Okay, I want to start off with maybe the elephant in the room that most customers are coming to talk to us about, and that is migrations and upgrades. So this is going to be a subset of what we specialize in, but I want to address this first because I want to point out a few things about what customers are trying to achieve right now, and then I'll talk a little bit about how we back this up in depth with our solution set. So essentially what Migrate Live is, it is an option to replicate from one system to another for the purpose of seeding a new system, upgrading to a new server, moving to your source system to a cloud server. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that it provides a real-time replication between an old system and a new system. Even 5 years ago, we found that most of our customers would try to do this by cutting a tape, doing a restore, but there has been a ton of pressure for businesses to stay up during the process and try to avoid the uncertainty, which was a real challenge during the pandemic because having resources available and finding these windows to make the change and ship a tape if it had to go to a different location just became extremely difficult. So Maxava does provide an option for this. You can think of it as like a short-term migration service where we are able to replicate from one system to the other That way you can stay up in production mode throughout the process. Once your new system is fully seated and synchronized, we can just cut over to the new system and decommission the old. It's just a straightforward answer to the complicated way that these switches were made in the past. And there's a few good things about how we have this baked in the background. Number one, we don't need the operating system levels to match. This has been a classic challenge of having to get both the old system and the new system to the same PTF level, get everything synced. We just completely bypass that problem. Having a different OS level is not going to have an impact on how we replicate and synchronize these systems. We provide all the auditing and tools internally within our packet to make sure that when you have replicated, everything is synced, everything matches, all the process between both systems are fully in play before you make that cutover. So we have helped a lot of customers shrink down what has taken probably months of planning for a traditional save and restore, and done it over a weekend with replication, with the assistance of Maxava and partners like Truis to make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. So normally it's funny because customers will come to us to talk about disaster recovery management, which is sort of a long-term process. But because of what's happening with the Power 10 delays and customers now moving to Power 9 and trying to get up as high as they can, the migration aspect of this has been a big focus. So the question then becomes, well, how do we ensure that this process is as smooth as possible, has all the integrity of the data that you're concerned about, and get you through as quickly as possible? So essentially what Maxava does is we provide three solutions. We provide a solution for monitoring, we provide a solution for rollback, and then we provide a failover process for the worst case scenario, which most people are familiar with us to do. And these products all work independently, but they can be worked in conjunction with each other, or they have good synergy. And we call those products Maxava MI8 Monitor, Maxava CPR, which is short for Capture Point Restore, and then we have the traditional Maxava HA. So I'm going to show you how these three components will work together, whether it's during the migration itself or as part of a long-term disaster recovery management solution, to make sure that if you have an event, the company is able to recover as quickly as possible with as minimal data loss as possible. So I'm going to start with the proactive part of MI8. MI8 technology essentially puts an agent on the various partitions and instances that you have. Now, this is the one product that will work outside of the IBM i. It also supports other platforms within the IBM i ecosystem. And essentially what we do here is we just put a small agent onto those systems so that we're not having any impact on the overhead on your source. And we feed that information through an SSL connection to a hardened dashboard that sits on an IBM Bluemix server. Now, we can do this type of setup in a number of ways. We could set it up so that the customer has their own dashboard, or we can set it up so that the partner has a dashboard on your behalf, or even a shared option. The point is we can customize this so whoever needs to see the environment has the ability to do so. This has been, again, another one of these products that really came out during the pandemic, where customers were not able to get in through VPNs. They weren't able to get to the office, so they couldn't administer the system easily. Using the reverse of a traditional product by feeding the agents to a cloud console allowed customers and partners to fill the gaps when we had some real resource struggles the last 2 years. And the nice thing about what this can do is it can look beyond just the HA, and it can tell us all the proactive information we need to know that might affect a failover or a migration or just your day-to-day operations. So we can look at messages that are related to hardware. We can look obviously at the OS. Probably most importantly, we can look at your applications and the high availability and business continuity tied to them. So what we do here is that once this information comes into a dashboard, all the various systems are represented as individual clusters, which you can see here at the top. So this is an idea of a customer that has 6 systems or 6 agents that they're watching in a console. So they're looking for all the types of problems we talked about. Putting the information out here isn't any more useful than just putting it on the green screen. We recognize that, and we wrote this product to help support customers during these type of remote situations that we were trying to help manage ourselves. So what we've done is we've built in some role-based access control and some scheduling into this product so that when we look at a particular environment, we will react to certain situations in certain ways. So as an example, if we had a hardware related problem, we typically know, especially with a service partner, that they're going to have field engineers who are roving around taking care of those systems for customers. And because they're remote, it's easier for them to get access through a cell phone. We can put those type of messages to them via phone on a schedule. So if there's after hour support at night, a lot of customers have one person who's on a rota who looks after emergency calls at night. This could be that person, and it's automatically scheduled. If a problem comes up in an application like JD Edwards or Infor.XA or Maxava itself, we could raise a ticket to your help desk system. So if you're using ServiceNow or you're outsourcing your help desk to a partner, that information is automatically passed through depending on what it is. Or if you have the traditional setup where you have a team who might be looking at screens all day as part of their monitoring exercises, or maybe they have a run book to check, we can put the information there too. But putting all that information to the right hands is only half the battle. The biggest power of what we can do is allow them to respond remotely. And again, this was key during the pandemic time. So if a message went out to a field engineer on a cell phone, we provide the encrypted technology as part of this solution to make sure that they can respond right from a phone, even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, to critical messages. We can verify that it's them. We have all the connection and handshakes built into the background so that it's secure. But it really improves the leverage for most customers to look at what's happening on the health of that system. And better yet, include partners where they can. So if you're looking for someone to say provide enhanced support to Maxava 24/7 or on weekends or afterwards, we can port messages and include Truis into that process as well, so that you have the right experts getting access to that information if that's what you want to have. Again, because of role-based access control, you can only see what you're meant to see within an individual profile. So we have all the security baked in to make sure that the right people have secured access. The second problem that we can help address is through this new product we've developed called Capture Point Restore. The birth of this product came about because customers, and again, whether it was our customers using any kind of replication, come to us and said, look, is there any way we could slow down replication so that if somebody accidentally deletes a file or somebody purposely deletes a file, replication doesn't pick it up automatically and send that deletion to the target system? Because the way the IBM I operating system works, if you delete a file, the file's deleted, it is automatically deleted through replication no matter what product you use. And to restore it, you have to go back to some previous copy. So what we did is we built a facility that we call Capture Point Restore. And it works on a concept of what we call capture points, which are essentially a combination of a command and a data type. So if this represents the daily life of a file where we're making changes, adding records, what Capture Point Restore will do is it will look for a particular combination. So in this example, we'll look for a combination of the command delete file, and we can look at, say, an SAP library. If somebody keys that combination, or what we call a capture point, CPR will spring into life. And what it will do is it will stop the changes that are made to the file because a deletion has been keyed. However, we will go out and we will capture that data set at the last transaction, and we'll store it either on your system or anywhere that you want to FTP to that you can provide storage. So in a way, this is like high availability in the sense that if there's an interruption, you're capturing a file at the last transaction possible. At that point, MI8 and browser wizards come up and say, hey, we were watching this file for attention. It's been deleted. Do you want to restore it to the chain, to that last transaction? If the answer is yes, the file is immediately restored and the chain is reset. So there are two practical uses for this. Number one is if there's critical ERP files, you might have a developer who accidentally deletes a file. That's the type of thing, a human error that we're looking to solve with this product. Otherwise, the security aspect that we've been asked to provide is if somebody maliciously tries to delete a key file. This is not something you would run across the entire system. It's something you would put on a specific file set. So if you're using JD Edwards, there'll be a handful of files that you would want to put against this. But again, even if you were trying to provide traditional replication, a deleted command will delete the file on the source. It will delete it on the target. You'll have to go back to some type of restore to get it. Maxava CPR makes this process of capturing the file and restoring it seamless without the time delay of going back 6 hours in the file. Okay. And then finally, that third product in the portfolio is our HA high availability product. Essentially, what it will do is replicate your information in real time from one system to another. It doesn't matter where that system is. It can be next to it. It can be in the same colo. It can be in a different colo. It can be in the cloud. There's no limitation as to where we can get this information to. But there are some special things about how Maxava HA works that make the product much stronger when we have environments where we have to provide failover and simulated services. So one of the first things that customers like about this product is that it does all its work on the target system. And what I mean by that is a lot of the traditional technology, because it uses things like the audit journal to collect some information for replication, it has an impact on the source system. Now, traditionally, that's not a problem because customers tend to upgrade in normal cycles and they have plenty of power. But when we get into situations like where we are today, a lot of customers are starting to get maxed out on that source overhead. So having a product that's low impact on production is important and is one of the big strengths of how we do what we do. The other nice thing about what we do, particularly for customers that have large IFS environments, is we provide a multi-threaded IFS replication. That's probably one of the biggest technical reasons customers come to us, particularly customers on some of the larger machines. They have very large IFS environments. It's hard to be able to replicate those environments and immediately fail over and fail back. But the Maxava multi-thread makes that easy to do. We have customers who are able to roll swap in just a few minutes and roll swap back. And behind that, we have all the facilities for self-healing, checking for backlogs, simulated failovers to make sure that if, on any given time, even during your normal production window of 8 to 5, you can check to see, is this system ready to fail over? So if the worst case scenario happens, we'll know that we can go over to the other system, everything will be synced, and the business will continue with the minimum delay. So this is the same technology that underpins the migration service we talked about. In the migration service, these things all work together to get information from one system to another in the short term. But obviously, as you make that change, we provide this as a long-term solution as well. As far as how you can replicate and what type of configurations, we have all types of choices. So we can work in the traditional environment where you're just replicating to 2 servers in one environment. We can work with or without Power HA. But one of the nice things, again, about what we do is we do not need the operating system levels to match. We know this is a real challenge out there. So in the example here, we can replicate from a source system that's at V7R2 to 7R3. We could add a third system, and we might want to do that to bring in a new box that we're going to seed through Migrate Live. Or better yet, what we're seeing more and more of is bringing in a cloud target system so that a remote system is available and managed through a partner. Again, this could be at another operating system level as well. But the power of what Maxava can do as far as the multi-nodes, we can change the source and direction around whenever we roll swap. So if you have to provide maintenance on a source system, we could swap over to your target. We can push replication from the target to the other 2. We can even roll swap over to the target and provide stepped replication for seeding. We can even go to an opposite environment where you have a source loaded in something like the Truis cloud, and you can use your existing hardware as targets for high availability. Maybe you want to use another one for development and testing. There's really no limitation to what configuration you want to be able to use. And compared to, say, hardware replication, there's no limitations on distance. We have customers like Skechers, as an example, who replicate to different boxes around the world through different partitions. There's no limitation to the size or distance of what we can send. So again, these things can be used independently. There's great synergy when you use them together. Even if this is just a migration project, this is providing the ability to look for problems before they occur. We can protect against either data corruption, whether it's an error, human error, or malicious. We can provide all the flexible response times so that you or a trusted partner can address issues as they happen in real time. And the entire solution set is underpinned by a product that provides self-healing. It exclusively uses the journal to keep minimum impact on your source throughout the process. Okay. Now, for smaller customers or customers that have a box that they can't move to high availability, but maybe they need to hold on to for compliance reasons. Over here in the States, we have a number of customers who essentially have moved the application off the box, but for legal and compliance purposes, they still need to hold on to the system for up to 7 years. So what we can do for customers that again aren't ready for the big move, they have to stick to a single system for whatever reason, we would recommend providing some end-to-end visibility using the combination of MI8 and CPR. And what those two products will do together is, again, CPR will put a watch on those primary files that are the most important. If anyone touches that file for any reason, Maxava Monitor will let you know, give you the ability to provide some protection. And we can look at some extended problems as well. We can monitor what's happening with the box, the battery, and all that good stuff. So that this is like, and we call it an HA Lite option. So it provides a heartbeat to your critical data on a system that might be sunsetted without HA, but at least it provides real-time protection and the ability to protect that critical data to the last transaction. Okay, so the questions that come up all the time: where does this stack up to the competition, especially against big products such as Mimix, which is a big known player in the space? And essentially, Maxava provides great options for customers that are looking for Power 9, Power 10 upgrades. And we do this in a couple of key ways. So if you're on, and we can provide support back to Power 5, but most customers right now seem to be at Power 7 or Power 8. We have a few options to get you up to where you need to be. So number one is we provide price protection. And what we mean by that is that we work off traditionally the P group of your existing source system. So if you have a Power 7 P10 today, and you are going to go up to a Power 9 or a Power 10 P10 system, we give you the ability to avoid an upgrade fee. So we don't ping customers whenever they add a core or go to increase CPW or go down a P group, because every time these generations come up, you get plenty of computing power. But you would know if you bought for a Power 7, 8, or 9, you would essentially pay the same price. And if you upgraded from one to the other, you're not going to be looking at upgrade fees to make the change. Number two, we can provide for customers that are using other products like Mimix what we call maintenance holiday. What the maintenance holiday does is it allows you to use the software in advance with a delayed maintenance clock. So if your maintenance isn't up for, say, 3 or 4 months, as part of our contract, we will allow you to use the software for those 4 months, but we won't start the maintenance clock until your existing contract expires. Because customers don't want to be seen to pay double bubble for competing products in the same year. So that's one of the ways that we keep costs down as we shift from one product to the other in the same year. I mentioned Migrate Live. If you have existing products, this is probably key to moving to Power 9 or 10. What we will do as part of the process is that we can install Maxava using our migration tools onto your existing boxes today. We can provide a license to seed the new box as well. And then we can do a simple cutover as part of that process. Now, the reason we do that is because, again, we just provide like a minor short-term rental. A lot of the other products, you're basically signing up to the new cost before you even get into the migration and beyond. So what this allows you to do is change the product before the jump, which gives you plenty of time to give notice and expire your existing contract at the original price point. So as we said before, if we're working with a P10, you know what that price is going to be. We can install it. You can decommission your old hardware or your old HA software and move across as part of the Migrate Live at the same cost. This one here, Maxava drafts, we have seen more and more of this, particularly through the pandemic, where customers are looking to provide replication from one system to a cloud target that's managed by their partner. Now, I personally love this protocol, and it makes sense. COVID has absolutely made sense of this, where people are not available in the event of a disaster. We still had some harsh winter months where we had some power outages. It gives the ability for a box to be roll swapped over to a partner to manage temporarily and then brought back. So if you're on the fence about how difficult a project would be to go source your own hardware and bring it in, we find working with a partner to provide a hybrid cloud option, which we call disaster recovery as a service, is probably the ideal situation. And again, the nice thing about Maxava is you can go in either direction. If it turns out at some point that cloud is not going to work for compliance reasons, you're just replicating back. So you're not locked into any one direction at any time. And the main piece that sits behind all of this is we would change you to an OpEx model. So if you have a product like Mimix or Itera, where you're paying an annual maintenance fee, our goal is not to sell you a brand new product at a capital expense. What we are looking to do is work within your budget by providing an OpEx. And what that has traditionally allowed us to do is get the product in there, including services under the existing budget that you have for maintenance. When you take the services away in year 2, you should be at a better operating expense level than you were with your existing budget. That's key. We know, the fallout from the last 2 years has been driving costs down as much as possible. So that is part of our philosophy, that you will make the change, you'll get more technology, and the cost that you're putting out annually is going to be less than where you are today. And then in the background, I always like to have this slide to give you an idea of where we're going, but more importantly, to showcase that we just continue to develop this product, right? This is our flagship. It's a core piece of what we do. We are not like a VC-driven company where the product gets further and further away from the forefront every time there's an acquisition. This is our main piece. So we have a number of automated migration tools that make it easy to move from competitive products into Maxava. That's critical in these short migrate live windows where we're trying to get everything flipped over as quickly as possible. As part of the service, we can provide the discovery and bandwidth estimations that allow you to determine what you need as far as, say, a hybrid cloud, what type of bandwidth you're going to need for replication, how much you need as a minimum to support that process if you use something on that end. We also have some other tools that make it easier to manage day to day. We provide backlog monitoring so that if any file gets out of sync, you have an estimation of how long it will take to catch back up. We have various interfaces that you can use. You can manage this from the phone. You can manage it from a browser. We provide a dedicated UI, and then obviously we talked about the MI8 product as well. We are continuing to enhance this with some security modules. So as I mentioned in MI8, we can look at things that happen from a platform perspective, such as hardware messages, application messages. We have some enhanced, what I would call audit and compliance monitoring as well. That'll be released into that product too. So what that will allow you to do is look at changes to the compliance settings, just like you would with the other areas we described in MI8 earlier. And then obviously we have a continual release of PTFs. We tend to put them out every 6 months, every quarter if we can. And that just continues to roll out. I usually have some slides about that, but it's pretty boring. So I'm going to leave that out for now. And I think this is my last piece here. Just talk about some of the customers that we have. We have customers all around the world of all shapes and sizes, but essentially they all use the same product. So we know that whether you have a small shop or a very large environment, there is great scalability within our product. Many of these customers have changed products in the last 2 years. I would say some of the bigger customers, definitely IFS was a need because those environments continue to just grow and grow. But there really is no limitation to who we can touch and how fast we can move these environments from one to the other as part of that process. And Lars, I think I'm handing it back to you.
You are, thank you. And yeah, the next thing to talk about is how Truis can help with this environment. So while Truis can help you build a Maxava solution with IBM Cloud or other cloud providers, we also have the flexibility to provide other cloud offerings in-house. This ranges from providing infrastructure as a service with dedicated hardware on your premises or our premises or anywhere, to the option of providing hosted partitions or even DR as a service. We're also developing other options as the market moves and as our customer requirements change. Maxava, as John says, have customers using all these cloud options in multiple locations since 2008. And Truis has got the expertise to help make it happen. As a mature provider of IT services, we've got technical architects that design infrastructure solutions that meet all our different customer business needs. Our technical engineers build the hardware and software solutions according to those specifications and follow through with migrations of the systems and the applications as required. And at the same time, we manage this with Prince2 certified project managers. Finally, our managed support and operational services provide a high level of flexibility. The services can range from ad hoc on-demand support to full outsourcing of the management of the availability and performance of your infrastructure. And as a thank you for taking the time to join us today, and in the theme of the beachy theme of good migrations, we're giving away a lucky door prize to one of our lucky attendees. And in case you didn't know, it's an ice-up. For the uninitiated, is an inflatable stand-up paddleboard. We'll be drawing the winner after the webinar, and you'll be notified by email. This leaves us question time. Now, if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat or to the Q&A. If you use the chat, we can don't have to make it visible to everybody. You can just choose the presenters as the target for your questions. Don't see any questions at this stage. John, have you got some of the sort of more common questions that people ask about the sorts of things we've talked about today?
Yeah, sorry, a question's just popping up here. And yeah, let me sprinkle some. Do we have a newer updated enterprise GUI PTF 5206? I believe so. That is hidden in that deck there. Eric, I will get you a confirmation and a link to what the latest is there. So that's the
Pretty
enterprise
sure
GUI
that,
itself.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that that PDF that Eric's referring to is the current level for the Windows GUI. I guess it sort of alludes to the fact that we've got the browser-based GUI.
That's what I'm saying.
So I don't know if you've got a timetable on the browser-based GUI.
I believe that the browser-based GUI is going through beta testing right now, or it is about to, so it is soon. And I've seen that. It's, to me, I like the way the interface works. I think the backlog piece is more reflective and easier to follow along. So that'll be available to anyone that's an existing customer. So you will get reached out by customer service, and they'll provide that out. Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Okay.
So that's something I can probably help Eric with. Another question we've got is about bandwidth requirements. I guess the bandwidth requirements will vary a lot depending on your volume of transactions, and that's where we really like to use some tools to analyze the rate of update for your database. And with those sorts of analysis, we can give you an estimate of the types of bandwidth requirements you're going to have. The bandwidth is based purely on the journaling that you're going to do, which is based on what you're actually going to replicate, what data you're going to replicate. The nice thing about journaling-based replication is that you don't have to journal everything, just journal the things that are changing or the things where you need the changes to be reflected on the DR side or on the target side.
Yeah. And again, I think we provide some additional bandwidth estimation tools that we can run during busier cycles to help identify that. I know that's a big question for customers that are particularly looking at like the hybrid cloud environments. That's important. A couple of questions popped up here. Do you need any special hardware? Oh, yeah, that's a good question. No, you don't. I know with some traditional monitoring, you need to have like a dedicated server to host the console. And I think you need like hardware for modems and whatnot to be able to communicate to that. You don't need any of that here because this is on a IBM server. That is all included as part of the console. So that just comes with it. You don't need to allocate any cost for hardware or any peripherals to do those communications. There's another question here too. Storage for CPR. Does this need to be? No, it does not. It essentially can be any storage and any storage that you can FTP to. So the biggest trick will be if you want to look at the size of obviously the file you want to store, make sure that you have the equivalent storage for it, but it can go anywhere. I'll jot that down, Glenn. I think we actually have a diagram of all the options, but essentially it can be anything that you can FTP to. What happens during a simulated role swap? Okay, what the simulated role swap will do, and this is kind of a key piece of what it does, it continues to replicate from source to target, but essentially it will pause what we call the apply on the target. So what that allows the product to do is check to make sure that everything is synced, there are no errors, and the audit is clear. Once you back out of that process, the information is already on the target. It's just applied at that point. And it's critical that we do it that way. That way, if for whatever reason the source actually went down, someone drove a truck into a telephone pole during this process, all the information is still replicated and sitting on the target. So it just needs an apply before you can role swap. There's no, most customers run the simulation in advance of a disaster test to make sure that nothing pops up in that audit. You can run that during normal business hours. I know a lot of customers do. So that really alleviates the whole, we have to go into multiple weekend exercises that you would do with a traditional like tape service recovery. Okay, is there anything you want to add to that, Lars? The simulator also.
I can vouch for that, having done it many times, and it really does, because it's something you can do on a weekday, and people can get on and test the applications on the DR system. It means that it really saves you having to do those big weekends where you're doing a full role swap to do the testing.
I'll say, I guess my parting shot too is that, it seems to be an interesting time. We've been through so much in the last 2 years that have just changed a lot. We see a lot of the core IBM resource over here is getting very close to retirement. So there's just a ton of chatter of, how are we going to continue the operation? Where are we going to get the help from?
Yeah.
We see partners as the key to this. I just don't see how else it can be done. So we keep developing these products with the idea that, look, these systems need to be managed remotely. They might have to have specialists touch the systems. So you could see there's a real service angle slant to what we're doing because we know that's where this is going to be 5 years from now. We migrate to a hosted system on the cloud. How do we maintain our communication with field devices, printers, etc.?
You're able to answer that?
Yeah, you can answer that one. I guess the question is if they roll swap.
I guess the access to the IBM the cloud system is really configured with in much the same way as your existing system is. I guess the best example I can think of is where is some of the places where we're hosting an environment for customers for DR or even for production. The network access is just to that site, same as you would have remote printers and remote users to any other of your systems. So if you had an in-house system at the moment and you had remote users, those remote users are accessing that in-house system by some communications method. The cloud system is really just another off-site system that those users would be accessing. And the only difference is that what's currently a local user would become a remote user, and they would have their printers and devices configured just as if they were remote users.
And I guess it depends on the stack too, right? I mean, if you're looking at the hosted failover as an emergency, a lot of customers will just have kind of a critical workflow that they'll look to run for, a couple hours until they can restore production. So you might not be looking to set the environment. Well, it depends. If you're hosting the source, you would, just as Lars has described. But yeah, it depends on how you're using the hosted system for what purpose. Might change how you point what to what.
Yeah, what sort of service you're asking to provide for that system if you were to roll over to it. So if you're rolling over to that DR system as just an emergency data access, then you don't need too much bandwidth access to it other than just for the replication itself. But if you're then planning to put a few thousand users onto it, you need to have the bandwidth available for them to access that system remotely.
This is an interesting point there. We have a lot of customers, and this is particularly heavy in the Caribbean where we have tons of banks. We're starting to get into a scenario where the banks have, because of their relationship with IBM and the nature of being in the hurricane belt, they tend to have two systems on island. But what we're finding is that they're having like an emergency hosted system as a secondary target in a different area, usually Canada or Ireland, because of safe harbor. So what they'll do there is exactly what you described, is they'll run a minimum slice of hardware, minimum bandwidth, just to keep replication alive. So that worst case scenario, if the local systems get wiped out, they have something to build off that's still up to date. Business can run because, as I showed earlier, you could roll swap. You might have some delays, but you're only going to be using that's like the worst case possible scenario, but you have the ability to run off there too. So if that's something that, that's another way that you might look at that to say you wouldn't put it on there at all, but it'll give you a lot more flexibility in a real major event versus the traditional DR, which is just one system as a target.
Yeah. All right, last call for any more questions. Thank you again for everyone for joining us today. We hope it's been of value to you, and wish you all the best for the rest of the day and for your next migration. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.